All right, Satillionaires, here's the Bitcoin story of Ingo, a German who moved to Israel and then Mexico, taking his Bitcoin with him everywhere he went. Stick around to learn what Ingo thinks about how Bitcoin can help save the world. Here's Ingo. Welcome to Sat Chats, the Bitcoin podcast where we chat about sats. Sats are the smallest part of a Bitcoin, the same way pennies are the smallest part of a dollar. With Sat Chats, we are building the world's biggest Bitcoin welcome center to serve as your gateway to generational wealth. So if you're new to Bitcoin, we want to chat about sats with you. Head to satchats.com to grab your slot in the studio today. I'm your host, Stuart Bitcoin Maxi, who wears prescription sunglasses to protect you and your loved ones from my Bitcoin laser eyes.
And I'm your co-host, Chris, founder and CEO of Ithaca Hummus, proud multi-coiner and Bitcoin Smash buyer. We would absolutely love it if you went to YouTube right now and smashed that subscribe button just like I smash Bitcoin. And we've got a special announcement today, That is a 1 million sats giveaway that we're doing. We'll be picking one of our first 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, randomly selecting one lucky winner to win 1 million sats. That's like almost $1,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
Today.
And
10,000 tomorrow, 100,000 later, million later.
Yeah. So you're going to want to make sure that you're part of that first 1,000 subscriber group. And at that 1,000 subscriber mark, we're also going to unlock a live show Friday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern time. It's going to be great. So let's get it done. 1,000.
Do not be subscriber number 1001. So today in the studio, we've got Ingo, who has himself a Bitcoin story. We're going to be hearing that today. But before we do, Ingo, help our Satillionaires get to know you a little bit better.
Well, thanks for the invite, Stuart and Chris. So, my name is Ingo Schulmeier. I'm from Germany. But over the last years, I was also living in different places, right? So we moved 2019, we moved to Israel, me and my family. I was working there for 3 years. And since 2022, so more than 3 years now, we're living in Mexico. And basically, before we did that, I had a good job. I was working in the semiconductor industry, and as a product management director, but it didn't really fulfill me. And then during the pandemic, me and my family, we decided that we want to do something else, and we went for adventure. We sold our house and everything, and we went to Mexico, traveled around here for 9 months, and meanwhile we built our house here. We built a new life here. My kids are going to school. I built my own business here. We're having now a house on a little land that we bought. We just finished. We just moved in, and we're here now, and we're living a happy life, I would say.
That's incredible. And you mentioned on your form that you were a digital nomad. Does Bitcoin play into your ability to move freely about the globe as you see fit?
Yeah, I think it's a great asset because with Bitcoin or in general with cryptocurrencies, it made it very easy to transfer money between different accounts in different countries. Since I'm from Germany, I still have some accounts in Germany. I have one here. I have some international accounts, and using Bitcoin or stable coins it's very easy to transfer it, to pay it out, to exchange it, right? It's different than if you have if I have my euro account in Germany, it's first of all it's expensive to transfer money, and with cryptos it makes it easier, I would say.
So where were you and what were you doing? What kind of problems were you up against that led you to discover Bitcoin the first time?
I'm not sure if I had really problems, but I think it was back in 2019. I mean, before I heard about Bitcoin, but I didn't really take it serious, or I thought, it's just I didn't really understand it. And then in 2019, I remember we were living in Israel, and I was discussing with a friend about investment opportunities, and we discussed stocks. And then he asked me, "So what? You're not in cryptos?" I said, "No. Should I?" And he said, "Yeah." And we talked a little bit about that, and I got interested. And after that, I started to, I like to educate myself. So I'm an autodidact. I like to learn a lot of stuff about the things I'm interested in. And then I started to playing around, and I opened my first account on the exchange, and I started to put some small money in different coins, and I also did some stupid things, and I lost some money. But then I started, and I did more courses. I read more books about the topic, and there it started, and I got really interested in it. And meanwhile, I'm a big believer in Bitcoin. Meanwhile, I just see it as it means freedom to us, right? And freedom is something that's very important to me.
You mentioned Bitcoin is freedom for you.
Right.
For the satillionaires out there who are still trying to understand maybe even just the basics of Bitcoin, what do you mean really when you talk about Bitcoin, is freedom?
I think there are a few points to that. One is that it's really, nobody can take it from you. Nobody can control it, right? And I think that's the good thing. I always think it's better if the money and the government is separate, right? The same as like the religion and the government should be separate, and other things should be separate. Also, the money should be separate, because if you control the money, we're all, it's part of the human nature, maybe even. So I'm not saying it's bad, but you want to control it, right? And eventually you want to use it to your own benefit. So I think since Bitcoin is really neutral and independent, nobody can control it. And I think it makes the world more equal, and everybody has the same opportunities. And then also, if I compare it now, what Europe wants to do, for example, with the CBDC, with this central bank digital currency, they want to introduce that this year in October, and they use it. They can deduct directly your taxes from that. They can block your payments if you're whatever. They also want to link it with a social credit score and this kind of stuff, right? So, if they decide you shouldn't drink your beer anymore, or you had enough beer, they can just decide that you cannot buy it anymore, right? Or the same with all this climate protection stuff, like whatever. Maybe you can not buy a flight ticket anymore because they say, okay, your CO2 footprint is already too high. I don't know, a lot of crazy ideas, and that means the government can control other people, right? And I'm not saying that like we shouldn't protect the climate or anything. But the question is, who will control you? And usually it's not the people who understand better, right? It's usually just, they're politicians, right? So I don't think it makes things better. So, and with Bitcoin, Bitcoin, I have Bitcoin on a cold wallet. It's independent. And compared to other assets like gold or something, or stocks, it's also, it's more flexible. I can take it anywhere. I can move to different countries. If I have gold, I cannot carry it, right? They don't let me through the security check in the airport. So I think there's a lot of advantages that provide more freedom to me.
So a central bank digital currency represents a form of money where the government can get into some very granular levels of control over the people who use it. Gold is neutral, but you can't really lug it with you from Germany to Israel to Mexico. So Bitcoin represents a neutral currency where you are in control and you can take it any old where you want. That's a pretty powerful comparison. I wasn't familiar with the fact that Europe was trying to roll out the CBDC this year. I guess I thought it was further off in the future. And I wasn't aware that
they just announced it last week that
okay.
Because they're under pressure now with all the global changes, so they just announced that they want to do everything very rapidly. I think they're also desperate in a way because they see that maybe their strategy doesn't go in the right direction. So I think it's also desperation, but I hope so. But yeah, they want to do things quickly now.
Desperation?
That they're desperate, yeah. That the European Union is desperate because this all this trend and all the strategy of globalization is not working anymore because many people and many countries start to understand that that's not the solution, and they want to get away from that.
Okay. They almost want to decentralize and break up or break apart from the European Union to do their own thing because the whole group effort isn't working out.
Right. Exactly.
I didn't know that Europe was considering a social credit score either. I thought that was just like a People's Republic of China type thing. Is there something in the works there for Europe?
I don't know if it's really in work, but I think it's connected to the digital euro, right? Because if you have the digital currency, you couldn't do anything, right? You have everything under control. I mean, where can you get the people with their money, right? Even if they're not saying that they're working on that today, I mean, it's just another step, right? In October, you do the digital money, and next year they take your taxes automatically, and whatever the year after they link your CO2 credit score to that, or your CO2 footprint to that, and so it's step by step.
Yeah, the automatic withdrawal of the taxes. How do you feel about that, Chris?
Oh, I mean, it just feels like, in American terms, like the Federal Reserve's wildest dream. Like, this would be amazing for those in power to be able to just take what they want when they want, whether they call it a tax or not. I mean, it goes from a system where they have a lot of control over our monetary system simply because they can print and print and print and print. That's already too much for me. Now they can shut down or, set up rules around how I can and when I can spend money. Like, no, thank you.
That's your 5th tub of Ithaca hummus this week, sir. Transaction denied.
Oh, God. Please no.
So Ingo, you, like all of us, heard about Bitcoin, didn't quite get it. Some time passed. Somebody brought it back up. You were in Israel. Your buddy said you should check it out. And you did. You checked it out. You saw, hey, this is decentralized. I can have private ownership of it. Were there any aspects of Bitcoin that you struggled with in the early days before you could get to where you were ready to buy it? Did you struggle with, like, well, how does it have value, or where does it come from, or is it secure? Was there any concept that you wrestled with in those early days?
Yeah, I mean, there's always the questions, what you're saying, right? Because it doesn't have an inherent value. I mean, the question is, where is the value coming from? And this is something that's also why before 2019, I wasn't really interested, because I think, okay, like fiat, it's just something some people in the internet make up, some new money, some coins. It's like a little bit like gambling, no? And I believe today many of the cryptocurrencies out there are gambling, or the meme coins or whatever. But with Bitcoin, I think the value comes through its limitation, right? And also, I mean, in the end, what I understood then is that the people giving a thing the value, right? I mean, nothing has a inherent value, right? Also, gold doesn't have a value, but Bitcoin, if enough people believe in it, then they're giving it a value. And the most important aspect of it is that it's not only scarce, it's finite, right? We have only 21 million Bitcoins out there, even a few less because some of them are lost already. So it's the only finite asset of the world. And if you understand economics, it's just it's always a question of supply and demand, right? And the supply is limited here. So this is something that cannot affect the price anymore because the supply is just there. It cannot limit. And what we're seeing right now is that people understand that it's finite, and therefore they give this more value just because of this characteristic. And with that, the demand is increasing, and with this, the price is increasing. And I think that will continue, and that's something I understood. That's why today I only invest. Today I'm a Bitcoin maxi, right? I'm only invested in Bitcoin. A few years ago, I started with XRP and Ethereum and this and that, and this is all okay. And I think they have their value also. Other cryptocurrencies, there's certainly applications for that, but they're not decentralized, right? They belong to companies, so they also have these limitations. And they get if what's his name, Vitalik Buterin or anybody decides tomorrow they change the code of Ethereum, they can just change it. And with Bitcoin, this will not happen, right? It's limited. It's open source. Everybody can see it. Nobody can change it. And therefore, I believe really that's why I believe Bitcoin is freedom, and the other things are also innovative, maybe. But it's something else. So that's why I'm Bitcoin maxi now.
Let's go. We love having Bitcoin maxis on the show so that our satillionaires can see you can put all your eggs in this basket. It literally does work. You can walk out on this Bitcoin bridge and it is sturdy. It will hold you up. It will support you. It's okay.
It's a whole lot less work too. You don't have to constantly monitor the value and the decisions and the earnings calls and who wants to do that? Or who wants to pay a financial advisor 1 or 2 or 3% to do it for you? And then you're also putting your wealth in their hands. Bitcoin's just easy. You just buy it. You just buy it and wait.
Just hang on to it. So you explored the concept of Bitcoin as a form of money and as something that is decentralized. You did have some crypto for a while, but to your point, realized, you know what, this is potentially valuable in the future in terms of its application. These cryptocurrencies can be applied to certain ends, but they're not money the same way Bitcoin is money. They're centralized. They are unreliable. It's effectively the same problem that we have with fiat currency, but Bitcoin is governed by its own rules. It does not change. It is reliable. It's scarce. It follows basic economic principles. It just makes sense. So when you got to that point where you had enough conviction to buy Bitcoin, we're familiar with 3 major buying strategies. The first is to make like our Chad Michael Saylor maxi over here and just smash buy as much Bitcoin as humanly possible because you love it and you know you're going to hang on to it forever. Another option is to go safety maxi, where you dollar cost average in bit by bit, week by week, or month by month. And still others might let their fiat build up like dry powder, and then they buy the dip, and then they let their dry powder build back up and they buy the dip. They're trying to kind of stack sats, in a more active, price monitoring way. So how did you start exchanging your fiat currency for Bitcoin? What was your strategy?
Yeah, I think I don't know if I had I had a strategy, but it's not what I have today. But it was just coming along that way. So yeah, when we left Israel, so we sold our house, so we had some cash, and I had to invest it, right? So I split it up. I had a lot mainly in Bitcoin, but also other cryptocurrencies. But I didn't wanted to put all the eggs in one basket, as you said earlier. So I also had some stocks and some gold, and even there's this gold stable coin, right? Some other instruments for just for leveraging a little bit and diversification. So I put the money there. Meanwhile, we bought a land here and we bought a house, but basically I used all the other investments, and so now all my investments are in Bitcoin because the others are just used for other stuff. So now I'm almost 100% Bitcoin.
100p.
And it sounds like you liquidated other investments and then just turned right around and just bought Bitcoin immediately with it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, more or less. I mean, I didn't invest lately because I'm living in a house that we own right now, right? So we bought this house here, we bought this land here. So new money flow mainly over the last 2 years into this house, but the rest is still sitting on Bitcoin. And if I needed money from my investments for putting in the house, for paying the workers here, so I used other investments rather than Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is still there.
Okay. So I love to hear that you are pretty much all the way Bitcoin, 100% Bitcoin. And, that's what we want for ourselves as well. So it's really inspiring to see Ingo, downfield from us. He's blazing the trail. He's like, dude, come on along. We're following your signposts. We're getting pumped up, dude. We're following the breadcrumbs deeper into the Bitcoin forest. One thing that you mentioned in your form was that you believe Bitcoin can help save the world. You've already mentioned the fact that Bitcoin's strict limits place strict limits on its users. For example, the ability to conduct war between nation states only so long as you have the money to pay for it, and also in the form of individual liberties and freedoms to allocate your resources as you see fit, and maybe have that extra beer at the bar without your, let the bartender cut you off, not your central bank, right? So when you think about Bitcoin and this concept of saving the world, what does that mean for you?
Yeah, I think let me start with one potential drawback that Bitcoin has, right? So, and that's why I really appreciate shows like yours, where you're trying to educate also the small people like us, right, to spread the message of Bitcoin, because I'm a little worried or concerned, not about myself, because I think for myself I'm on the safe side. But what we're seeing right now is that there are a lot of big players out there, right? There's BlackRock, and now there's some governments are coming into that, and I think we should try to avoid that. In the end, only a few control Bitcoin, right? Because if in the end we have just like whatever 3 nations and 3 big companies like MicroStrategy and whatever, and BlackRock and a few others, if they are controlling most of the Bitcoins out there, it also doesn't help the small people. So I think for us, it's important that everybody has a little bit, right? And then you have a better distribution, and then it's also less vulnerable towards manipulation and all this stuff. So that's why I really appreciate that you're educating the people, and everybody has a small piece of the cake, and then it will make it more equal. So that's what I would appreciate. And yeah, I hope the US is doing what they're saying right now, and they're starting to adopt it. And I think that has a lot of advantages, because then also other nations will have to do the same, just because of game theory playing out, right? Because they see, okay, the price is rising, they're buying, so we should buy also some. And then suddenly they figure out, okay, there's not enough for everybody. And then it starts, right? Then the problem starts. Or then it's a good problem to have if you have already Bitcoin, because then the price will go exponentially. So, yeah.
So I do agree with you that decentralizing a decentralized currency, also known as making sure that we are all stacking sats, is one of the best things that we can do for Bitcoin.
Right.
So I'm not sure where I saw this, or actually, it might be on the dashboard behind you. The amount of Bitcoin held in corporate treasuries, right? What is that, 11%, something like that?
Yeah, 11.5%.
So on the one hand, I do hear that story often where we want to make sure Bitcoin stays, you know, we don't want corporations or governments to capture Bitcoin. But even with the Chad Michael Saylor going into this infinite money glitch to stack as much Bitcoin as possible, and all of these other corporations like Similar Scientific following suit, we're still only at 11% of the total amount of Bitcoin held through these corporations. And I say that not to counter your concerns, because they're valid concerns and I agree with them. I say that to encourage our satillionaires to stack those sats right now, because when we take 21 million Bitcoin and divide it by 8 billion people, it's about 250,000 sats per person. And of course, however many millions are locked up or lost, which means your fair share is actually a little bit less than 250,000. And one of the reasons why we use the term satillionaire for our community of viewers and listeners is because we're kind of hoping they'll decide to try to get 1 million sats at as a goal, right? If 250,000 is your fair share, try to get 4x that, and then hang on tight, because as the corporations and the nation states adopt, you will have gone out in front of them and you will benefit from their hard work, because as that supply dries up and the demand increases, it's just good, clean supply and demand at that point, isn't it? So it's a good concern for us to address, and it is important to educate as many people as possible so that they can start building their generational wealth. But that concern aside, how do you see Bitcoin changing the world? What problems do you see it fixing? How is it going to save the world?
Yeah, I think it's solved. I think in the end it comes down that all problems are problems of money, right? So all the wars we have, all the economical problems are problems of money. And especially what's happening right now, that that's the term fiat money, right? The fiat money doesn't have any value anymore. It's just printing on paper. Not even today, it's not even paper anymore. It's just numbers in the computer. So, and I think we solve a lot of economical problems. We solve all the problems with all the debt. Even the nation states have today, right? The US has a lot of debt. Europe, all the other countries, they have a lot of debt. And I think we can solve all that. And it will probably be a little bit painful, because you have to pay back the debt. And every time you change something, there will be resistance. But I think in the end, it leads to more fair monetary system. And I think that's, as I said, many positive aspects.
I agree with that. It is, and I love that you said most problems turn out to be money problems, which is ultimately resource problems. Mm-hmm. And it is interesting to go from viewing Bitcoin as an investment with your buddy in Israel, right? What can I do with my money? All the way to, man, if we can adopt a Bitcoin standard, it will right size the governments. It will right size the conflicts or wars. It might be a little painful to go from this silly space where we just, print whatever money we need to a place where, you kind of have to have it in order to spend it. But once you get past that period, you create a world where people have to work hard to earn money. And then when they're ready to spend their hard-earned money, it gets them the same or more than they could have bought when they earned it, right?
I mean, it also solves the problem. Basically, it solves also two two things that are not correct or that are not justice, right? One is that the transfer from money from the small people to the governments, to the big people, to the big companies by inflation, right? If governments print more money, that basically means inflation. That means the money you earn today, tomorrow has a lower value. And Bitcoin solves this problem of inflation. And the other thing is also it's more just to, for future generations, because these trillions of debt that we have today, one day our children need to pay that back. And I think that is also solved by reducing the inflation and by cutting this debt. So it will help our children.
So we were just talking about that inflation the other day, where we are already taxed on our earnings directly, right, through income tax. Sounds like Europe may be watching that money leave their accounts magically. I mean, it's basically like when you subscribe to Netflix and they just draft that out of your account each month, and you kind of forget about it. It's like you're like subscribing to the government at that point. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay. We'll just auto draft, your subscription each year out of your account. But they're also taxing you by inflating the money supply to pay themselves. And in Bitcoin terms, it's almost like your share of the network is decreasing each day because the network is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But since Bitcoin's network, so to speak, is limited, then your share of that network is protected and it's locked in.
It's the silent tax. And I love it when Michael Saylor calls it slow motion theft. It's like a great phrase. It's just slow motion. We're taking from you right out from underneath of you without you even really putting all the pieces together and to realize it.
That's wild. Is it more favorable in Mexico, or are they living in fiat clown world as well?
To both of your questions is yes. It's more favorable, especially for me as a foreigner with international income and international distribution. I think Mexico also has the same kind of government that going in the same direction like all the others. So I think they're also taxing. There are a lot of problems. I'm not saying it's perfect here, but especially for digital nomads, it's easy because I'm hardly paying taxes, right? I have my companies. I have a US LLC in Florida, and since I'm not a US citizen, I'm hardly paying any taxes on that money I make through this company. And then I have my wealth distributed, and the cost of living is so much lower here. At least for me as a foreigner, right? There are many people, of course, with problems and many poor people, which is of course also a problem and should be solved. But for us, it's good to live here.
Okay, here we go. The sovereignty. There we go. Your YouTube channel talks about self-sovereignty. Right. And I've read The Sovereign Individual, and it paints this picture of a digital nomad who can move himself to whichever jurisdiction or nation state or government is most favorable for him. And he can say, yeah, I'm not a big fan of you auto drafting my income taxes out of my digital euro bank account. So I'm going to see you later, and I'm going to Mexico. Or, to an extent, Prague, for example, has announced that if you hold Bitcoin for 3 years or more, you don't need to pay any capital gains on those sales if you were to do that. El Salvador is another one there in Central America with you that seems fairly favorable for Bitcoiners. So And it sounds like you've set up, it sounds like you're taking advantage of the digital age, just like the sovereign individual described, where you're living in Mexico. Your wealth is not only secure in Bitcoin, but you have several mechanisms or vehicles or strategies for distributing your wealth footprint across the world in order to protect yourself from the overreach of certain governments that just kind of want to go ahead and spend your money on themselves. So can you help us understand a little bit more about how you've set up your life as a digital nomad, how you've been able to create sovereignty for yourself in today's world?
Right. So sure. I think first of all, doesn't only apply to digital nomads. And today I wouldn't call myself anymore digital nomad because I mean, I'm not traveling every week and sitting in Airbnbs or hostels or hotels. So because we were traveling here for almost a year, but since I have teenage kids now, we decided to settle for a while. But it's also a sovereign decision, right? In the end, not everybody wants to travel the world, or not everybody wants to be a digital nomad. But to be sovereign means that you make yourself independent, and that starts with, first of all, freeing your mind. I think today we are very biased and influenced by all the garbage, like the media garbage that we get in our brains every day, and all the nonsense we hear out there. Maybe not the people, maybe not you guys or your audience, but a lot of people that are watching the mainstream media and they're working in their 9-to-5 jobs are just living like that, right? They think they have a good life, but in the end, they're not really happy and something is missing, but they just stick so much in their comfort zone that they're not able to go out anymore. And so I think it's important to go back. And so I call myself also adventurer, right? Because I like adventures. I like to go out. I like to go in the natures. I like to go with my bicycle. I like to do a lot of crazy things. And I think everybody needs to have this curiosity. I think we all have it as small kids until we grow up, until somebody tells us or we learn from our education system and all of that is not appropriate to adults, right? And that you should have a safe job and a family and a house and a car and whatever, like a retirement plan. And I think that's not life. So if you go back to sovereign life, it means, first of all, to be responsible for yourself. It comes with a lot of responsibility, and it also comes with discipline. And yeah, I can just encourage everybody to go there, because in the end it's so much more fulfilling if you take over responsibility for your life and not just say, okay, the government takes care for that and my social insurance takes care for my health and all the other stuff. So I think it's before. That's also one of my topics that I'm talking also with my clients and also in my YouTube channel, that before you can become financially free, you need to become mentally free. That's something I believe in, right? Because you can have a lot of money or a lot of Bitcoins or whatever, but if you're not mentally free, you will never be free. So free your mind first, and then decide what you want to do, and then get independent from the system. And then that can be by starting your own business, having a side hustle, and then also look at your investments here, right? And that's something, you talked about the digital age, and I think that's one of the great advantages that we have today, and we should use that and get into that. And there's so much opportunity to build your own business with AI, to distribute your wealth on, like, diversification, not only in terms of different assets, but also like a global or a regional diversification. So there are many things to do, and they all help you to become more free, but you need to get started with it.
Well,
no, I talked a lot.
No, that's perfect. And it sounds like you have some clientele that you help with that type of financial aspect. So where can our Satillionaires go to engage with you if they're interested in exploring what you have?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is check out my website and my YouTube channel. Both is called The Small Reset. So it's thesmallreset.org or YouTube at The Small Reset. And from there, you will find all the information. There are videos, there are blogs, and there's also like you can book a free consulting call for mentoring.
Okay, that's
Sovereignty
awesome.
mentoring, I call it.
So the smallreset.org, did you say?
Right.
Okay, and then at the Small Reset on YouTube. So let's recap today's conversation because it's been a really energizing one.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of daydream about the freedom to go where I want with my family and maybe even live long term somewhere else, pick up another language, explore another culture. I've got a lot of love and respect for what you've been able to accomplish in your life, Ingo. So today we talked about how Ingo grew up in Germany. He eventually took his family to Israel and worked in the semiconductor space. His buddy there helped him to kind of rediscover Bitcoin after seeing it for the first time and not really getting it. Looked at it as an investment to get started and went down a fairly common space path that includes both Bitcoin and crypto. Moved from Israel to Mexico with his family, traveled around for 9 months or so, decided to settle down, grab some land, grab a home for himself. And as he built that home, sold off non-Bitcoin assets to pay for that, and eventually got to a point where he is 100% Bitcoin, and feels like Bitcoin is the pathway for individuals to free their mind, to conquer their finances. It's also a way to get outside of what seems like an increasingly more controlling governmental type of scenario where a central bank digital currency, a digital euro for the European Union, could mean that they pull taxes right out of your account. It could mean that they cut you off at the bar because they see that you're tipping too many back. They might limit your airplane flight because your carbon footprint's too big. They might say, you're not a good enough citizen to buy stuff. Your social credit score has gone way down, man. You need to get your numbers up. It provides a way for you to be more sovereign, to have more freedom, and to right-size governments, to right-size conflict, different resources. So a really interesting journey from seeing it for the first time, coming back to it later, getting started with your journey, going even deeper, and ultimately living this life of, no longer a digital nomad, but definitely a sovereign individual. I feel like I could put Ingo into that class of sovereign individual with a multi-domiciled wealth and living footprint across nations and countries. So we really appreciate you coming on the show, Ingo, and we're going to make you an offer here in exchange for the proof of work that you've laid out for us here on today's show. But before we do, we are going to taste some Ithaca hummus. I will serve as your, taste buds here in the Raleigh studio today.
I must tell you something. So my wife is Israeli, so she makes the best hummus on the world.
So you know a little bit about hummus.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So your choice was lemon garlic. Probably,
okay.
I'm sure you chose that because it's a nice, clean, kind of traditional approach to hummus.
Lemon and garlic is the basic of hummus. Yeah.
That's the base.
Yeah.
So this is not available in Mexico.
No.
We're currently taking over the U.S. marketplace, but the next time you're in Florida maintaining that, LLC, maybe you can rip by a Publix
Yeah.
grab some Ithaca hummus, and then come back to the comment section of your episode of Sat Chats and tell us what you thought about it.
How's it compare to your wife's hummus?
Yeah. So let's take a bite here.
Oh, another good batch.
It's so good.
Yep.
How is it? Good?
Yeah.
It's so flavorful.
Yeah.
It's got the lemon. It's got the garlic. It's got the thick.
Ithaca.
Not Athena.
No.
This is Ithaca.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we would be dying to know how that stacks up to your wife's hummus. And we also invite all of our guests to come back on the show in 9 months to give us an update on their Bitcoin baby. Would you be willing to jump back on, give us an update on the home, the family life, Mexico, and your whole Bitcoin approach, your thoughts?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. I'm happy to do that.
Okay, so we can't wait for Ingo to come back on the show. Let's get him his offer.
All right, Ingo. So as a small token of our appreciation here on Sat Chats, we believe in value for value. So we are going to give you the choice between $50, 50 US dollars, and $50 worth of Bitcoin. Behind me, I've got the Clark Moody Bitcoin dashboard pulled up. And currently, the exchange rate for one Bitcoin is $84,490, which translates to 1,184 sats per dollar. So I'm going to do that math here quickly on my calculator. $50 in Bitcoin is 59,200 sats, or $50. What's it going to be?
I heard that sounds good. We're good, right? Sats?
The sats are good, yeah.
The sats are good. We don't, what is it? This thing is an artifact. Like, go hang it in a museum somewhere, man. We're done with that, dude. Go back in the corner, you dunce. So we love that you picked the sats. Let's get a high five. 59,200 sats for Ingo. Thank you for keeping the streak alive. That means so you are number 42, Ingo, and you bring our scoreboard up to 39 guests who have chosen the sats, 3 guests who chose the cash. So we want to get all the way to triple digits before the cash gets to double digits. If you have made it this far, give us your value for our value, the same way we gave Ingo value for his. Smash the like and subscribe. Do not be subscriber number 1001. Get in now. Lock in your chance to win 1 million sats. And help us unlock that live show Friday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern so we can all chat about sats together.
Yep.
And remember, Sat Chats is for educational purposes only and should not be construed as financial advice. Also, our guests' views are their own. Thanks so much, Satillionaires. We'll see you on the next one.